Hello, this is Pinkietessa's A to Z of London. It's L for the London Eye. This is one of the newer attractions to the London directory of things to do and see in London. It can cost nearly 19 quid to go on the Eye. Do they still call them flights? Less of a flight really, and more of a Ferris wheel. A large one right enough. It was formerly opened by Harry Lime. Only kidding. It was actually opened by the then Prime Minister Tony Blair on the 31st of December 1999, just in time for the millennium. So they called it the Millennium Wheel, for a millisecond. But I don't think anybody noticed. Originally, it was part owned by British Airways and was officially known as British Airways London Eye, which is probably where the flight thing came from. In 2006, it was bought by the Two Swords Group, which in turn was bought by Merlin Entertainments. However, since the 20th of January 2011, as a result of a sponsorship deal, it now goes by the snappy title of EDF Energy London Eye. Let's face it, it's the blinking London Eye. Full stop. During the London Olympics in 2012, the Olympic emblem will be attached to the London Eye. Every Olympics have their own emblem design integrated with the Olympic 5 rings. The wheel design represents the turning of time as the 20th century moved into the new millennium. It was the vision of husband and wife architect team David Marks and Julia Barfield. They were also part owners with British Airways. The gestation period for the Eye was 7 years, requiring the skills of hundreds of people from many different countries. Due to technical issues, the wheel didn't open to the public until the 9th of March 2000. Since that time, it has become a major landmark and a superly-duperly huge tourist attraction. The parts for the wheel were floated up the Thames and assembled lying flat on piled platforms on the river. Once completed, the wheel was raised into position by a strand jack system at the breakneck speed of 2 degrees an hour. How Speedy Gonzales was that? At 65 degrees of elevation, it stopped for a week. No, it did. It's not just my parlance. Whilst the second stage of construction took place. Major components for the project came from all over Europe. It is the tallest wheel in Europe at 443 feet and the most popular paid-for attraction in the UK. Over 3.5 million people jump on and off as it goes round and take a turn. Annually, wouldn't you know? When it was erected, it was the tallest in the world until May 2006, when the Star of Nanchang went up, eclipsing it by 77 feet. And after that, who cares that the Singapore Flyer went up 98 feet taller at 541 feet. But it's still the world's tallest cantilever observation wheel, so hurrah for that. The wheel is supported by an A-frame on one side only, unlike the other two wheels in China and Singapore. To right, the British, stylishly risky, what ho? The London Eye celebrated 10 years of revolving fun on the 9th of March 2010, so it's another 21 years of revolving amusement before the lease expires. Turning and turning into another Eiffel Tower that was only meant to be temporary. The Eye originally had planning permission for 5 years. It sits on land owned by the South Bank Centre. A small part of the Jubilee Gardens was purloined for £1 when the Greater London Council was disbanded. In May 2005, Ken Livingstone, the then London Mayor, discovered the SPC were intending to raise the rent to a ridiculous amount. He stepped in with a big no to that little routine. The upshot resolved the eye's survival problems for the foreseeable future. A 25-year lease was agreed, and in one foul swoop, the huge construction loan, which now stood at a whopping £150 million, and increasing, was resolved with a new ownership deal with two swords. And even the publicly funded SPC ended up quids in too with a super-duper rent. Fancy it? You can hire a private pod for about £460. There are other private hire alternatives, with or without champagne, with the powder puff gals for a make-up experience, and children's parties. Prices naturally vary. But don't you go leaving your lethal weapons behind or your prosthetic limbs. Apparently it happens. Though how anyone got on the eye with a lethal weapon is a mystery to me, with all those officious security chaps sergeant majoring it about. There are 32 capsules, one for every London borough, each weighing 10 tons. That's roughly 2 well-sized African male elephants. I wonder if you could actually get 2 well-sized elephants in one capsule. But you can stuff 25 people into one capsule with room to spare. It's the rules. Each capsule takes about 30 minutes to do a rotation, which is a rattling 0.6 miles an hour. The wheel never stops. Passengers jump on and off. That's possibly how the prosthetic leg got left behind, I would imagine. The circumference of the wheel is 1,392 feet, and each passenger capsule incorporates an entirely new design for an observation reel. Instead of being suspended under the wheel, they turn within circular mounting rings fixed to the outside of the main rim. The result is a stunning 360-degree panoramic view from the top of the wheel, and not a wobble for it. The Ferris wheel weighs in at a huge 2,100 tons, so if that fell on your head, even a hard hat would be hard put to have any effect at all. Alternatively, with all them spokes, the likelihood is that you'd have a Buster Keaton experience and be as safe as houses, if not a little scared out of your wits. The hub is a rolled steel tube forming the spacer that holds the spokes apart. It weighs 333 tons and is nearly 76 feet tall. On a clear day you can see for miles and miles, about 25 miles, at the highest point. So if you had extraordinarily good vision and knew the direction of Windsor Castle, you could probably see it. In December 2010, the London Eye was voted the best place to be kissed in a poll by nearly a quarter of all Britons. Sounds a likely tale to me. Kisses or no kisses, this has been my L for the London Eye.